Hey, I'm Jesse. Welcome to the first devotion in our series to the book of Esther, Risk Everything. In our devotions, we're going to accompany our sermons and our curriculum by way of showing how the unseen God has been at work for centuries before the events of the book of Esther. God's name never comes up in the book of Esther. But in these devotions, I'm going to curate a series of scripture passages that are directly connected to the events of the book of Esther to prove God was at work long before Esther was even born. The unseen hand of God is evident throughout the passages of scripture that lead us to the book of Esther. Let's begin with some of the final words of Second Chronicles. First and Second Chronicles are just this rapid fire recapping of the history of the people of God. And then the very last anecdote that is recorded in Second Chronicles sets the tone for the book of Esther. We have some of the final kings of Judah named, right? Like Josiah in chapter 35. Judah's king Jehoahaz, Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, King Zedekiah, and then you have the destruction of Jerusalem, and then comes this little passage right here. In the first year of King Cyrus of Persia, in order to fulfill the word of the Lord spoken through Jeremiah, the Lord roused the spirit of King Cyrus of Persia to issue a proclamation throughout his entire kingdom and also to put it in writing. Now, we'll look in an upcoming devotion at what that writing actually is. I just wanted to stop with this little moment right here. And I wanted to show you Cyrus's own take on the matter. King Cyrus of Persia, in order to fulfill the word of the Lord spoken through Jeremiah. In one of our previous sermons in Isaiah, we saw King Cyrus prophesied. He was referred to as God's anointed, not the anointed one, the Messiah. He's the only one in all of Scripture, aside from Jesus, who's referred to with this word anointed, but he's not God. He's not the Son of God. He's nothing like Jesus. He is God's anointed one to come and protect and deliver Israel from the Babylonian captivity. It was an outpouring of wrath upon the Babylonians that spurred God to bring up the Persian Empire, which would then take over Media, the Medes, hence becoming the Medo-Persian Empire. And it all began with this guy. It all began with Cyrus. He's the first king of Persia. In the first year of King Cyrus of Persia, in order to fulfill what God had spoken through Jeremiah, the Lord roused the spirit of King Cyrus of Persia. Now, this is particularly fascinating because Cyrus has a different take on the matter. Here is an artifact in the British Museum. It's called the Cylinder of Cyrus, or the Cyrus Cylinder. And written on this clay cylinder is Cyrus's own account, in which he gives full credit to the false god Marduk, the Babylonian god Marduk, for choosing him and enabling him to conquer Babylon, which is a little bit funny because in Cyrus's mind, it's a Babylonian god allowing him to conquer Babylon. So that's Cyrus's take on the matter. The reality is, biblically, it was the God of the Jewish people whom he would deliver who was at work through him. King Cyrus would pass away, his son would take over, his grandson would take over, such and so on, until eventually you get to King Xerxes or King Ahasuerus, who is the king we meet in the book of Esther. His ancestor, King Cyrus, was the one through whom God had given a prophecy that we will look at in tomorrow's devotion. Even though you don't see God named in the book of Esther, for centuries prior, he has been at work. Tune in tomorrow and I'll show you more. This is really, really cool.